Hello, welcome back to my channel. I am sorry I haven't posted anything up until recently. Um, Partly that's because I got lazy, but also partly because my sister is coming back and my mother and I have been doing a lot of shopping and preparing and all this other stuff for my sister to come back. Um, we have a lot of stuff to do. There's a bunch of stuff on the bed. It's gonna be a busy few days, so that's why I'm making this video right now. So the title of this video is probably something along the lines of what autism was like for me, and uh, I would say that for most of my life, autism basically it was just something I denied having. It was simply like, I don't have autism, you know. Um, I never had it. I don't have it. I'm completely normal. But the more I read about myself, read about what I was like back then, the more I find that I actually am or kind of was pretty autistic. Um, I Well, for one thing, when I was a child, I would always run around. I would leave the house sometimes. Um, I would strip to my underwear during art class and make peacock noises. On top of that, I had difficulties making eye contact, and my mom, I remember she told me how she would give me, she would like tilt my head and she'll say, look at mommy, and I would do that, um, and just a whole bunch of quirks like that. And my dad thought it was nothing. He thought it was just normal childhood growing up. My mom did manage to get me an Asperger's diagnosis, but it never really affected anything. She had to be the one to advocate for me with my teachers and all that other stuff, because in one class I would be like really nice and sweet and the teacher would love me, and in the other class I would completely suck and then the teacher would hate me, and they would just withdraw from me because I wasn't paying attention well, and my mother would have to step in and do that stuff. And when I was 18, or I think 17, I finally got an autism diagnosis, a real official one, or I guess a secondary official one, I'm not quite sure. And once I started seeing Dr. Segal, my autism psychologist, my mother, I remember her saying that, oh, thank God, I'm so relieved. It's like I'm finally done holding my head above the water for so long. Needless to say, though, for years after, during my college days, she still had to do a lot. It's only been now recently that I've turned 28 and in my late 20s that I finally, I don't know if I've completely grown out of it, but I think I have a well-developed brain enough to understand why I was so messed up as a kid. So besides all the stuff that I mentioned before about me running around out the house, stripping naked, making peacock noises, poor eye contact, things like that, I was always sort of very antisocial in my my interactions with each other. I was, for one thing, I wasn't really interested in anyone else whatsoever, unless if they were like interesting or somehow a threat to me, like a physical danger or something. Otherwise, people were just like houseplants to me. They're like background, not important. I had no desire to go out and meet people or talk to people or make friends with people. I did have friends, so I wasn't a complete shut-in, but I had no interest in that in of itself. I would just sit in the classroom and read and do nothing by myself. Um, and that's one of the things that I found now to be what probably mainly set me apart from other people, I guess, was that I did not really care about the social order or being socialized or socializing myself with others. I remember reading this article recently where it said that, people watching, the idea of watching others, goes back into our monkey ancestors. And the reason for that is because socialization is uber important when it comes to survival. Um, without good social standing, you'll be barred from things. You'll be barred from food, you'll be barred from water, you'll be barred from mates. They might even hunt you down and kill you if you did something really bad, make them hate you. And so that's why, from the womb, basically, they did this experiment with fetuses. They would project a picture of a human face on there, and the fetuses would turn and look at the human face. Fetus me would not really care about that and would not look at the face. That's what my fetus itself would have done. Fetus me would not care. But I didn't care about the entire social world that I was in. That I was in this sort of web bubble type thing. I used to think that socialization was a frivolous thing. But that's just like saying, lion cubs playing with each other with their teeth and claws are frivolous. It may look like a fun thing that they're just doing, but nature put it in them to fight with their claws for a reason with each other, so that when they're lions, they could be able to fight and guard territory and stuff like that. We humans fight with social signals, target relationship networks, build skills that are desired, control resources. We're essentially evil geniuses, I guess. Maybe that's too dark of a comparison, but it's kind of the more I study it, the more I realize that a lot of the stuff we do is basically manipulation, social manipulation, social networks. The social networks are like the key thing. That's what we would do. And so it may seem frivolous, but it's actually important. And I didn't have that. I wasn't interested. I didn't care. What I thought made humans separate was our desire to, our intelligence, was our ability to figure out problems, be able to make rocket ships, things like that. But I didn't understand or didn't recognize the idea that, or the truth that, you had to have groups of people working in concert underneath a sort of set of rules, hierarchies, and have funding and all that other stuff in order to build that rocket and to launch that rocket. Essentially, human connectivity, human relationships are like the key to everything. I didn't understand that. So I would sit as a 12-year-old and I would read stuff online and I wouldn't care. I remember when social media came along and I thought to myself, why on God's green earth would anybody willingly go on a website just to talk to people? I literally thought that. But under the whole people watching thing, it actually made sense. So, and I didn't recognize the power of the hierarchy to make or break you. I didn't recognize those things. Thank God I never actually had to represent myself in a social situation. I probably would have destroyed myself, or at the very least put my foot in my mouth, because at the time I didn't care. I care now because I know how important it is, but at the time I didn't care. Considering that they can borrow you from stuff, and everything that you are is basically dependent upon a social network. Especially now that we're in a post-industrial society that farms, and everyone has to go to the store for food and stuff. Back as hunter-gatherers, though, that would matter less, but it would still be uber important, and that's why, again, fetuses would turn and look at the face when they need... Well, not really when they need, they just do it. Fetuses just turn and look at the face, and humans are essentially manipulative, mimicking clout chasers. As a young girl, I thought that the idea of humans being interested in other humans is narcissistic. I don't think it's really narcissistic per se, but even if it is, it doesn't matter, because that's the key. You get power. Life is essentially about power, but I didn't care about that, and so I didn't care about that throughout my teens, my early 20s. It was only when I was 24 that I started to care. I listened to, well, the thing is that, they say there are 3 paths to wisdom. One is through the hard knocks of life. The second one is through emulating wise people. And the third is self-reflection. I did a bunch of self-reflection through the internet. And I guess the thing is because I wanted to understand people more, because I thought, and it was right, but because I was exposed to the fact in high school, I think I was like 15, 16 years old, that technological development is wholly dependent upon what people choose and decide to invest in. And so I decided to look into human social relations, and that's how it got kick-started. And it wasn't until I was 24 and I was just I was watching Jordan Peterson. And Jordan Peterson, people say, like, oh, he's saying stuff that's obvious. Well, it wasn't obvious to me. And so what he was saying was basically, I didn't take him very, fully seriously, but what he was saying was occasionally profound to me, because I didn't understand human social relations and things like that. I guess maybe I did when I was younger, but it just seemed like hypocritical, hypocritical, take things and dispose of them when you need them or don't need them. It was like a touch and go morality. And I didn't understand that context made everything. I thought that morality was like a law of physics, where, the speed of light is 186,282 miles per second, regardless of where you are in the universe. And I didn't think that, morality could change with context. And I was just shocked and didn't understand that stuff. I always thought in black and white, meaning if you give something a little bit, you have to give all of it. If something is true in one situation, it's true in all situations, at least to an extent. I thought like that. And even if I was to be even if I really, really wanted to be socialized, had a real interest in it, even if I was forced into social situations and had to work on them in order to survive or whatnot, I would still have a hard time grasping things. I wouldn't be understanding them. My mindset was too simplistically logic focused. It was too black and white. It didn't have the touch and go, quote unquote, nuance. The touch and go, quote unquote, nuance that the other humans seemed to have, that I thought was just, hypocritical and stuff like that. I didn't understand basically that it was utility. I thought, utility, morality is for social groups, words are social tools, it's all utility. I thought they were statements of fact, like the speed of light, like I said before. And so if one thing could be different in a context that disproves, quote unquote, the morality of that statement, like the way that, like the way, let's say, Einstein's theory of relativity sort of disproves, quote unquote, Newton's Newtonian physics, or maybe the idea of the bad air of disease theory being disproved by this discovery of germ theory. I thought of it like that. I thought it was like things could be either true or false, right? So killing babies is wrong. Killing babies, therefore, is wrong in all contexts. There's zero context where killing a baby is ever justified. Then I watched Game of Thrones, and I saw that part of the plot line was they killed children, and then I was shocked by that, and then I looked on the internet, and there was a comic book girl, I think her name was, and she was like, oh yeah, you have to like kill babies sometimes if you're in like a warlord situation, and you have to fight for your throne, and like those kids are competing against you in the throne. I was like, whoa, hold up, you can't kill kids, that's immoral. And I was shocked by that, because I guess because I was disturbed by it, but also because I just didn't understand. I'm like, wait, how can that be true? Wait, so you're saying that there are circumstances where it is okay to kill babies? What other circumstances are there then? It's like figuring out that there's an exception to the rule that you can't go faster than the speed of light. It's like, hold the phone here. What other cases can you go faster than the speed of light? And is the speed of light even a relevant measurement? The idea of context didn't fit in my brain at the time. Now I know it's all about context, basically. It's just simple as that. Moral statement is only relevant in terms of the context that it is in. You take the moral statement and you put it in a different context, and it might not be valid, or even the opposite has to be true. Because context rules. Not the statement, not the content of the action in of itself, but rather the context in which the action is placed is what decides if it's good or right, good or bad. Like, you can shoot someone and they die, and in one context it's completely immoral and you're a monster and you should die, right? But in another context, you're a hero, you're amazing, you did the right thing and should be praised. The action is the same. You shoot someone, and then they die, right? But we have two different words for those two different scenarios. One is murder, which is by definition the unjustified killing of someone. One is just killing, where you just kill someone, right? So, what makes it wrong is like what the person is doing, that makes them liable to be killed. That's the variable that they're talking about when they're talking about this distinction of murder versus killing. And they will have like two completely different, separate concepts and words to describe the situation, even though the action is the same. Well, I guess the action isn't really the same, technically, because if you're acting against one person, the action against the person you're acting against is part of the action. So if you're murdering someone, but that person has the qualities of an innocent person, that we state in our society anyways, then that's a murder. But if you do the action against a person who has the qualities of a guilty person, of a dangerous person, whatever, then that's justified. So at that point, you're not talking about the actions. Rather, you're talking about the person upon which the action is acted upon. So, recap, you, in terms of shooting someone, the action is not what's being judged. It's the person that the act of which is being done upon that makes it or breaks it. And I didn't understand that. Maybe that's because I had low theory of mind or something. I don't know. But over time, I had to deal with that. I also had to deal with a bunch of other types of morals, stuff like that. Like the idea that people's interests aren't necessarily aligned with yours, and that they can screw you over in a way, so to speak. I'll give you an example. So there was this TV show, I forgot what it's called, and in the show there was this short little chubby Mexican boy, and he was going to ask this pretty girl out, and she said, sorry, I like you as a friend. And then he said, well, I have plenty of friends. And then he just separated the friendship. And I thought, what? That's so selfish. So you were just using her as your friend to get close to her so that way you can have a relationship? The friendship doesn't exist at all? But I didn't notice two things. A, male and female friendships have totally different standards than that of same-sex friendships. I didn't know that because I had a lot of male friends at the time. But it's different. And B, a person can break off a relationship for whatever reason they want. And if the reason happens to be conflicting with your interests, too bad, they're allowed to do that. And in fact, it can be empowering in certain circumstances because it benefits them. So that's basically the example I give. Another one is like abortion, right? Like, if you read the philosophy of abortion, let me start off by saying that when I was like in my young 20s and teens, I thought abortion was wrong. Then as I got older, it sort of changed. And the reason why is because you read into these philosophy papers, and basically what happens is that, like, they would argue, like, oh yeah, even if the fetus is a person, because it's in my body, I still get to kill it. And I thought, what? That's crazy. So you can kill a baby if the baby is inside of you? And then, of course, they would argue about the whole bodily autonomy thing. Like, if we don't allow women to get abortions, then, like, the government will be able to harvest your organs or something. I don't believe that. I think that's a shitty argument. But still, I still support abortion now, because there are cases where you can screw another person over and it'll be completely justified, because people's interests do not align with your interests necessarily, and they can choose to screw you over and it be completely legal and justified and even necessary on their part. And I didn't understand that. Perhaps that's my innocence, but also perhaps it's just my theory of mind, that I thought that everyone was here for me. I don't know, maybe it's both. Well, that was the ways I didn't understand morality. And of course, I know that plenty of adults, are against abortion for various reasons. I know that. I'm just giving them this example of my personal opinion, and I didn't understand the ideology of why people thought that, but now I do. So anyways, you can feel free to hate me or disagree with me or say that I'm wrong and abortion is still justified, whatever, I don't care. Point is that I didn't understand the full reasons why people supported abortion until later. And I think part of that had to do with my autism, but I guess another part had to do with my naivete. Anyways, and so just a bunch of things like that. Just a bunch of little moral, social interest, figuring out complex, nuanced stuff. And I didn't know about that until later. The point is that I didn't develop my social capacity, my thought of, like, I don't automatically go, I have to link up with this person, or, oh, I have to do what this person wants me to do, or, like, I have to present myself in a different way for them. I didn't think like that. I thought that was, like, ass-kissing. I don't know, maybe it is, but still. But I didn't know. I didn't think it was important, or I was just flipping against it, and I was like, fuck this shit. I'll do what I want. What you gonna do about it? I was just an arrogant teenager, early 20-something. And only in my late 20s did I realize, oh, socialization is the most serious thing that a human being can possibly do. There is no other higher playing field than the socialization of other people, with other people. One more thing before I go, I suppose. When I was a teenager, I would read sci-fi books, but I never really cared about the human characters. I only wanted to see the aliens and how weird they were and what they thought and what they did and things like that. I never cared about humans or human interest or human feelings or human character arcs where they changed and stuff like that. I didn't care about the humans. To me, it was just like, there's humans all around me. Why do I need a story about a human? I know humans. I can just, like, turn on the TV or read a history book or talk to a friend or something. I don't need to read a book or media to understand humans, because we already have enough humans on this planet. But again, if you go under the idea of, stories are sort of a form of people watching, or stories are a form of like supporting community ethics and stuff like that, then it makes perfect, complete sense. I have two sci-fi books right now, and they deal with aliens and stuff like that. So I'm trying to get into that to understand these things. But it's now that I'm older. When I was a kid, I was a complete idiot. Now I'm not, basically. And I think most of that is due to my autism. Some of that was due to my naivete, though. And I just want to let you know, guys, that that's what autism can do to a person. People say that autism isn't a disorder. Yes, it is. Uh, it may be a difference that can help you with do stuff, but the thing is, considering the crown importance of human socialization in pretty much all aspects of life, to ignore that is to be at your own peril. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like I said before, people watching goes back to like our monkey ancestors. Because if you don't watch your social standing, you can be dead. But not watching it is dangerous. And so, like, if you're autistic and you can't communicate, or you're like a shut-in and you just refuse to like talk or build your network, which is as important, if not more important, than the actual skills you know, especially nowadays, you can be screwed real hard. So, as a result, I think autism is a mental disorder, is a weakness, is a deformity, and a very serious one at that. Probably more serious than other ones, unless if you're like Tay-Sachs disease or something like that, but like being in a wheelchair is probably less of a hindrance than being autistic, especially if you're severely autistic, because you can't socialize right. If you're a person in a wheelchair, but you're super savvy, super socially likable, you know how to read the room, you can do all this stuff, and I guess you can like do independent living by yourself and your network, you can go farther than me. I know that because I basically spent my 20s just whittling my thumbs. If I had been more socially savvy like my sister, I probably would be doing great things right now. I don't know, but I have this YouTube channel, so I guess that would do. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.